Imagine standing on a mountain, looking down at a city, thousands of people living their lives, merchants selling goods, children playing in the streets, families eating dinner together. Now imagine that within a few weeks, that city belongs to you. Not because they voted for you, not because they welcomed you, because you conquered them. And then you move on to the next city and the next and the next until your empire stretches across continents. It sounds impossible, but one man actually did it. Not Alexander the Great, not Napoleon, not Julius Caesar. A man born in a small tribe on the Mongolian steppe would go on to build the largest contiguous empire in human history. His name was Genghis Khan, and more than 800 years later, people still debate whether he was a genius or a monster. Welcome to Meal Mobile. Today, we're telling the story of Genghis Khan, the man who conquered more land than any ruler before or since. To understand Genghis Khan, you first need to understand where he came from, because he wasn't born into power, he wasn't born into wealth, and he certainly wasn't born with an empire. Around the year 1162, a boy named Temujin was born in the harsh grasslands of Mongolia. This wasn't a world of cities and castles. It was a world of endless plains, a world of horses, a world where survival was never guaranteed. Winters were brutal, food could be scarce, and rival tribes were constantly fighting each other. Life was hard, then it became even harder. When Temujin was still a child, his father was poisoned by a rival tribe. Overnight, everything changed. His family lost their protection, lost their status, lost almost everything. Other tribes abandoned them, friends disappeared, and suddenly they were alone. For years, Temujin's family struggled to survive. They ate roots, wild plants, whatever small animals they could catch. Some days there was barely enough food to stay alive. Many people would have been broken by a childhood like that. Temujin wasn't, because those difficult years taught him something important. In the world he lived in, weakness was dangerous, and power meant survival. As he grew older, Temujin began gathering followers. At first, there weren't many, a few warriors, a few families, a few loyal friends. But unlike many leaders of his time, Temujin rewarded people based on ability rather than birth. If you were brave, skilled, and loyal, you could rise through the ranks. People noticed. More followers joined him. More tribes allied with him. And slowly, his influence grew, but Mongolia was divided. Hundreds of rival groups fought each other for land, livestock, and power. Old rivalries stretched back generations. Many leaders refused to accept Temujin's authority, so he fought them, one by one, battle after battle, year after year. Eventually, he achieved something many thought was impossible. He united the Mongol tribes under a single banner. In 1206, Temujin received a new title, Genghis Khan, a title often translated as universal ruler. It was a turning point in history, because once Mongolia was united, Genghis Khan looked beyond the steppe, and what he saw were opportunities. To the south lay wealthy Chinese kingdoms, to the west stood powerful empires controlling trade routes and rich cities, and Genghis Khan intended to conquer them. His army was unlike anything the world had seen. Mongol warriors spent most of their lives on horseback. Even children learned to ride from a young age. They could travel incredible distances in a short time. They were disciplined, fast, and deadly. Their greatest weapon was the composite bow, small enough to use while riding, powerful enough to kill from a distance. A Mongol horse archer could fire accurately while moving at full speed. Many enemy armies simply couldn't compete. But military skill alone doesn't explain Genghis Khan's success. He was also a brilliant strategist. One of his favorite tactics was deception. Sometimes Mongol soldiers would pretend to retreat. The enemy would celebrate, believing they had won. Then they would chase the fleeing army. That was exactly what Genghis Khan wanted, because the retreat was a trap. The Mongols would suddenly turn around, attack from multiple directions, and surround their enemy. Again and again, armies fell for it. Again and again, Genghis Khan won. His conquests spread rapidly. Parts of China fell under Mongol control. Cities in Central Asia were captured. Entire kingdoms collapsed. Stories about the Mongols spread across continents, and with those stories came fear. Because Genghis Khan understood something many rulers didn't, fear could be a weapon. Some cities resisted. Those cities were often destroyed. Others surrendered immediately when they heard the Mongols were approaching. They had seen what happened to those who fought back, and they didn't want the same fate. As the empire expanded, trade routes became safer. Merchants could travel vast distances across Mongol territory. Ideas moved more freely. Goods moved more freely. Cultures that had once been separated suddenly became connected. In some ways, the Mongol Empire helped bring different parts of the world together, but that doesn't erase the violence, because Genghis Khan's campaigns caused enormous destruction. Entire cities were wiped out. Millions of people died during the Mongol conquests. For many communities, the arrival of the Mongols was a catastrophe. This is why historians still debate his legacy today. To some people, Genghis Khan was a visionary leader, a military genius who united tribes and transformed world history. To others, he was one of history's most ruthless conquerors. The truth is that he was probably both, a brilliant strategist and a devastating conqueror. By the time Genghis Khan died in 1227, he had already created the largest contiguous empire the world had ever seen. But the story didn't end there. His successors continued expanding the empire even further. At its peak, the Mongol Empire stretched from the Pacific Ocean all the way to Eastern Europe. No ruler before him had ever controlled so much connected land, and few names in history have left such a lasting impact. What makes Genghis Khan remarkable isn't just what he achieved, it's where he started. A poor boy on the Mongolian steppe, a child abandoned by allies, a family struggling simply to survive. From those beginnings, he built an empire that changed the course of history. More than 8 centuries later, his name is still remembered around the world, not because he inherited power, not because he was born a king, but because he conquered his way into history, one battle, one city, and one empire at a time. This was the story of Genghis Khan, the man who conquered more land than anyone else in history, and whose shadow still stretches across the world today. Subscribe to Mealmobile for more stories from history. More soon.